Ever get totally sucked in by something that seems, I don't know, kind of basic at first glance?
Oh, absolutely. Like you think you've got it all figured out, and then bam, it just unfolds in all these unexpected ways.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today, diving deep into this French poem. It's called moitié, which, translates to like halfway or in half. And let me tell you, this poem, it's like deceptively simple.
It's amazing how much it packs into these few short lines, right?
Seriously, we're talking universal themes here. Purity, you've got experience, acceptance, all that good stuff. But in this really concise, almost like condensed way.
It reminds me of those tiny little seeds that grow into these huge, sprawling trees. There's so much potential packed in there.
Right. Like a tiny seed of thought that just blossoms into this whole forest of ideas.
Exactly. And this poem does that by using such evocative language.
Okay, so let's get into it. Right off the bat, you got the first line, "Schlossly, I soil it." Even just that word soil, it feels so intentional. What do you think about that, about using that word, that image?
It's interesting, right? It's not a neutral word. It immediately makes you think about something being tainted or like made impure. And it makes you wonder, what is it? What's being soiled?
And why? Because the very next line is, "Parce qu'il est arrivé à moitié," because it arrived halfway. So something arrived, but it arrived halfway. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's almost like the poem is saying that nothing ever arrives fully formed or like completely pure. There's always this sense of incompleteness, of something already being in process from the very beginning.
Okay, so maybe it's not about something being intentionally soiled, but more like inevitably changed by the very act of it coming into being or coming into contact with something else.
Exactly. It's like that moment when you step onto a fresh patch of snow. No matter how careful you are, you're going to leave a footprint. You've changed it just by being there.
Wow, that's a really powerful image. And it makes that next line hit even harder. "Non, t'aurais pas dû," which is like, no, you shouldn't have. Like a sudden pang of regret, almost.
Awesome. Absolutely. It's that feeling of wanting to hold on to something in its pristine state, even though you know deep down that it's impossible.
Oh, totally. Have you ever felt that, like that impulse to preserve something exactly as it is, even though you know that change is like the one constant?
All the time. It's that tension between wanting to protect something and also knowing that growth and experience, they often involve some kind of alteration.
And that brings us to the imagery of the Vex in Muir's, the green mangoes and ripe berries. Talk about a contrast, right?
Yeah.
You've got the unripened potential of the mangoes on one hand, and then the full, juicy ripeness of the berries on the other.
It's such a brilliant way to represent the different stages of life, the different stages of anything, really.
Right. And the poem doesn't shy away from any of it. It embraces the green mangoes and the ripe berries as part of the same natural progression.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes the ending so powerful, because after all this back and forth, all this questioning, and maybe even a little regret, it ends with, "Avec tout ça, on se contente de ce qu'on a." With all that, we are content with what we have.
It's like coming full circle, right?
Yeah.
We start with that feeling of soiling, of something being maybe kind of messed with, but then we end with this acceptance, this contentment with the whole journey.
It's beautiful, really. It's like the poem is saying that true contentment comes from embracing the entirety of the experience, the soiling and the purity, the green mangoes and the ripe berries. It's all part of the richness of life.
Wow. So we started with a deep dive into a short poem, and I feel like we ended up exploring some really profound truths about, like, life itself.
It's incredible how art can do that, isn't it? Spark these really big questions and insights from something so seemingly small.
Totally. And I think it leaves us with something to really ponder, don't you think? Like, if this poem is about accepting the whole messy, beautiful journey, then what does that mean for how we view perfection?
Is it even something to strive for, or is true perfection about embracing the ever-changing, constantly becoming nature of it all?
That's a really great question, and one I think we all grapple with in our own ways.
For sure. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been pretty thought-provoking.
My pleasure. Always a joy to dig into these richer meanings with you.